Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep on something every project manager, or really anyone who's ever had a deadline, will appreciate. Uh, how to shorten project timelines and make better decisions when the pressure's on. We're diving into project crashing and project control, our source material, excerpts from a document that gets right into the nitty-gritty of these techniques.
I think what's really cool is that crashing a project, as the name suggests, isn't always the best way to go. It can really backfire if it's not done strategically.
Right, it's not as simple as just, throwing a bunch of resources at a problem and hoping it magically speeds up.
Exactly. Like, imagine you're leading a team and you push everyone to work overtime just to hit this super tight deadline. Yeah, you might save some time initially, but you risk burnout, mistakes start happening, and ultimately the quality of the entire project suffers.
That makes total sense. It's a delicate balance. So let's break it down. When is crashing a good strategy, and how do we do it right?
Okay, well, first you got to understand the concept of the critical path.
Critical path. Okay.
Yeah, it's essentially the sequence of tasks that directly determine how long the whole project is going to take, the shortest possible completion time. When you're crashing, you're focusing laser-like on these critical path tasks because shortening anything else won't actually speed up the overall project.
So step one, figure out which tasks are on that critical path. Got it. Then what? Do we just try to make those tasks go as fast as humanly
I
possible?
don't think so, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that straightforward. Each task actually has something called a crash point. This is the point where, you can throw all the resources you want at it, people, money, whatever, and it just won't go any faster. It's like, think about writing a report. Two people can definitely write one faster than one person, right? But if you keep adding more and more writers, at some point it's not going to make much of a difference. They might even get in each other's way.
Haha, that's a great analogy. So there's this limit to how much we can speed things up, even with extra resources. How do we figure out where that limit is and which ECH tasks are the best ones to focus on?
Okay, this is where it gets kind of technical, but bear with me. It all comes down to something called the crash cost slope.
Crash cost slope. Sounds intense.
It's basically telling you how much the cost goes up for every bit of time you save by crashing a particular task. We want to find the tasks with the lowest crash cost slope, meaning we get the most time saved for the least amount of extra money.
Okay, so we're looking for the tasks on the critical path that give us the biggest bang for our buck, essentially.
Exactly. But here's where things get a little tricky. As you start crashing tasks, the critical path can actually shift.
Wait, what? The path itself can change.
Yep. A task that wasn't originally on the critical path could suddenly become critical if you shorten tasks on a different path.
Oh, wow. So it's not a one-time decision. You got to keep an eye on it as things evolve.
Exactly. You need to constantly monitor that critical path and adjust your strategy as you go.
This reminds me of a project I worked on, a new marketing campaign, and we were cruising along, hitting all our deadlines. Then, boom, our graphic designer gets sick, right before a major deadline. Talk about pressure.
Oh man, yeah, I've been there.
We had to make a tough call. Do we try to crash the design task, maybe bring in a freelancer even though it'll cost more? Or do we adjust the whole timeline and push back the launch?
Classic project management dilemma. What did you end up doing?
We decided to push back the launch a bit. We figured keeping the design quality high was more important than sticking to the original deadline.
Sometimes that the smarter move, even though it feels counterintuitive.
Absolutely. Tough call, but it taught me a lot about balancing priorities when the unexpected happens. Crashing isn't the only tool in our arsenal here. We got to talk project control, too.
Oh yeah, project control is all about staying on top of things throughout the project's life, making sure we're on track and adapting to any changes that pop up.
Easier said than done, right? It seems like there's so much to keep track of. What are some of the key things we should be monitoring?
First things first, we got to figure out how often we're going to check in on the project's progress. Is it weekly, bi-weekly? This is called the review period. Then we gather all the info on what's actually been done, which activities are finished, which ones are still going, and how does all that compare to our original schedule. That's where we see if anything's veering off course.
It's like taking the project's temperature, right? Looking for any signs of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And if we will find something off, that's where we take corrective action. Maybe we reschedule some tasks, move resources around, even adjust the scope of the project if we have to.
So even with the best planning, we need to be ready to adapt as we go.
Absolutely. Remember, that project plan is a living, breathing document. It should be updated regularly to reflect what's actually happening, not just what we hoped would happen.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about how important it is to understand the critical path, that crash cost slope to really do project crashing right. And we've touched on the key steps involved in project control. Let's get into a real-world example now. Our source document talks about a project developing agro-technology demonstration blocks.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. It'll help us see these concepts in action.
So what kind of activities are we talking about in a project like this?
Picture everything that goes into setting up these demo blocks, right? You got to level the land, build stone pitching, raise seedlings, all the irrigation and drainage systems. Then you got to prepare planting pits, transplant those seedlings, and finally, put up some fencing.
Sounds pretty involved.
It is. Luckily, the document gives us these two helpful tables. Table 1 lays out all the activities, their dependencies, and how long they normally take. Table 2, that's where we get the juicy details on the normal A&D crash times for each activity, including those crucial cost slope calculations we were talking about.
Okay, let's dive into Table 2 then. What jumps out at you when you look at those numbers?
Well, if we were trying to shorten this project, Activity C, raising seedlings, initially looks like a prime candidate for crashing. It's got a relatively low cost slope, just RVS 180 per week, meaning we could potentially knock it down from 26 weeks to 21 weeks without breaking the bank.
Hold on, wouldn't rushing the seedling activity potentially hurt their quality? How do we make sure we're not sacrificing quality for speed here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Crashing decisions always have trade-offs. We'd need to carefully consider if reducing that seedling raising time would affect their health and viability, which could have, ripple effects on the whole project down the line.
Right, so even though it's got a low cost slope, it might not be the best move if it risks those seedlings. What else do we got to consider here?
Well, remember how we talked about the critical path potentially changing? Even if we do shorten that seedling raising activity, it might not actually shorten the entire project. It all depends on the other paths in the network.
Ah, I see. So we can't just focus on one task. That's a serious chunk of change. It seems like crashing can be a powerful tool, but it requires a lot of careful thought and analysis. And of course, we got to remember those project control techniques to keep everything running smoothly as we make these changes, right?
You got it. Crashing and controlling go hand in hand. We'll dig deeper into those control techniques in just a bit.
All right, so we've really gotten into the nuts and bolts of crashing, but let's switch gears a bit and talk about how we keep everything on track once we've made those changes. Project control, kind of like the unsung hero of successful projects, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Think of it as the rudder that keeps our ship on course, even in stormy seas. Because even with the best plans, and, even if we crash things perfectly, unexpected stuff happens, almost guaranteed.
Yeah, tell me about it. I remember this one website redesign project I was managing. Smooth sailing, everything going great, until suddenly our lead developer quits out of the blue, left us scrambling to find a replacement, and totally threw off our timeline.
Oof, that's rough. But it just shows how important project control is. It's all about keeping a close eye on progress, spotting any deviations, and making adjustments to steer things back in the right direction.
So practically speaking, how do we actually DO project control? Any specific techniques or frameworks we can use?
There are a few, actually. One that's pretty popular is Earned Value Management, or EVM. It's a super useful tool for objectively measuring how the project's doing and forecasting if any problems are brewing.
EVM sounds kind of fancy. Break it down for us.
Okay, so basically EVM brings together measurements of scope, schedule, and cost. Gives you this comprehensive view of project progress. It uses these three key values: planned value, earned value, and actual cost.
All right, and what do those mean exactly?
Planned value is how much the work scheduled to be done at a specific point should cost based on the budget. Earned value is the value of the work actually finished. And actual cost, well, that's just how much you've actually spent so far.
I'm following so far. So we compare these values, and that tells us if we're ahead or behind schedule, over or under budget.
You got it. By looking at the differences between these values, we can spot potential problems early on. Like, if the earned value is way lower than the planned value, it could mean the project's slipping behind schedule.
Makes sense. So it's like an early warning system, giving us time to react before things get out of hand. Any other project control techniques we should know about?
Absolutely. The critical path method, which we talked about for crashing, is also useful for monitoring progress and spotting potential delays.
Wait, so the critical path method helps us with both speed and decontrol.
Exactly. By closely tracking those critical path activities, we can see any bottlenecks or delays that might impact the overall timeline. And then we can be proactive, maybe reallocate resources, change task dependencies, whatever's needed to lessen the impact of those delays.
This seems like it involves a lot of data analysis, keeping track of different metrics. What are some of the key reports we should be looking at?
The project status report is a must-have. It's like a snapshot of where the project's at right now. It'll show you progress on those key milestones, how the budget's doing, any risk assessments, and of course, any outstanding issues or challenges.
So it's like a full health checkup for the project. Got it. But how do we make sure these reports are accurate? I mean, bad data leads to bad decisions.
That's a great point. It all boils down to having a solid system for data collection and analysis. We got to have clear processes for tracking progress, recording actual costs, and documenting any changes or issues that pop up.
And I bet communication plays a big role here too, right? Everyone on the team needs to be on the same page, and any issues need to be flagged ASAP.
You're absolutely right. Regular team meetings, status updates, open communication channels, those are essential for effective project control. Everyone needs to know where the project stands, what the risks are, and what we're doing to address them.
So it's not just about having the right tool, it's about the whole team working together and being transparent.
Exactly. Project control is a team sport, and everyone needs to be on board to keep things moving smoothly.
All right, so we've talked about how important project control is and how it works alongside crashing to achieve our project goals. But let's bring it back to our listeners for a second. What are some key takeaways they should keep in mind when applying all this to their own projects?
Good question. Well, first off, I think it's crucial to understand that project crashing and project control aren't like separate things. They work together, two sides of the same coin, to help us manage all the complexity of projects.
Right, it's not about picking one or the other. It's about using both strategically to get the best possible outcome.
Exactly. They should also remember that every project is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to crashing or controlling. The specific techniques they use will depend on the project itself, the resources they have, and how much risk they're comfortable with.
It's about tailoring our approach to the situation. Makes sense. But what about those unexpected events we were talking about before? How can our listeners be better prepared to handle those curveballs?
That's where good risk management comes in. It's about identifying potential risks before they happen and having plans in place to deal with them. Like, remember your website redesign project where the developer quit. If you had a backup plan ready, like a list of freelance developers or a way to redistribute the work among the remaining team members, it might have made things a lot easier.
That's such a good point. Having those backup plans can really save the day. It's like having insurance for your project.
Exactly. And remember, risk management isn't a one-time thing. New risks can pop up all the time, so you got to keep reassessing and updating your risk management plan throughout the project.
Okay, so tailoring our approach, having contingency plans, and embracing risk management. Any other words of wisdom for our listeners before we move on?
One last thought.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment and learn from your experiences. Project management is all about iterating and constantly improving.
Love that. Each project is a chance to get better and refine those skills.
Exactly. The more you learn and adapt, the more effective and confident you'll become as a project manager. You'll be able to tackle any challenge that comes your way.
Wow, we've covered so much ground today, from those critical paths and cost slopes to like the bigger picture stuff like risk management and adapting to change.
It's amazing how all these pieces fit together, time, cost, scope, risk. It's a constant balancing act. And yeah, it can feel overwhelming at times, but when you get it right, when you deliver a project on time, on budget, and it actually exceeds expectations, man, there's no better feeling.
I bet. It's all about finding that sweet spot, right? Speaking of putting all this into practice, remember that agrotech demonstration block project we were talking about? The one where the supplier suddenly throws a wrench in the works?
Oh yeah, that one. What a curveball.
Let's revisit that scenario. Our listener's in charge now. Supplier announces a delay, potentially pushing back the whole project. What would you do?
Well, first things first, we got to figure out just how bad this delay is. Does it mess with the critical path? What other activities get impacted down the line?
Yep, gotta assess the damage first. Then what?
Once we see the ripple effect, we could start brainstorming solutions. Do we try to crash other activities to make up for lost time? Maybe speed up the land leveling or streamline the irrigation setup? But gotta remember, crashing always has a cost, and sometimes there are risks too.
Right, we'd need to check those cost slopes and make sure we're not sacrificing quality or, burning out the team in the process.
Another option could be to look for other suppliers, even if it costs a bit more. Can we find someone who can get us those materials faster? Might require some quick thinking and negotiation skills.
This is where those project management skills really come into play. It's like a puzzle, figuring out the best move. And of course, we got to keep everyone in the loop, right? Stakeholders need to know about the delay, what options we're considering, and how the timeline might change.
Communication is key. Being transparent builds trust and helps manage expectations. It might even be a good idea to involve the stakeholders in the decision-making process. Present them with the different options, the pros and cons of each. Their input could be really valuable.
That's a great point. It not only gives you more perspectives, but also makes everyone feel more invested in finding the best solution.
Exactly. And hey, sometimes the best solution might be to adjust the project's scope or the timeline. It might feel like a setback, but sometimes you got to be realistic about the impact of the delay. It's all about making sure the project ultimately succeeds.
Adaptability, that's a key skill for any project manager. It's not about sticking rigidly to the plan. It's about navigating those unexpected turns on the road.
Couldn't have said it better myself. As we wrap things up, I want to encourage our listeners to keep learning and growing. Every project, every challenge is a chance to sharpen those project management skills.
Love that. Never stop learning, right?
Right. The world of project management is constantly evolving, and by staying curious and open to new ideas, you'll be ready to tackle any project that comes your way.
It's been a fantastic deep dive into project management. We hope you've learned some valuable strategies and feel empowered to take on those project challenges. Until next time, happy project managing.